Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out. Welcome to Trans Day of Visibility 2023. On behalf of the AADL, we have a special guest for you tonight, Lily Valeen, game dev for the hit mobile RPG Boss Game, The Final Boss is My Heart. We were intending this event for a live audience, and sadly, Lily has COVID. So we wanted to avoid any health risk to the community, so we're hosting it from home. Uh, yeah. I guess like from a little bit of background information from my end, I know Lily from a couple of trans hangouts that we used to do a long time ago.
Tea
Um,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
before COVID. And it was just wild to me that I heard that Lily had in fact made a game, and I went and played it, and it was really good. Um,
It's
and
a lot of fun, Lily.
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm
Um,
glad.
so we have a small bits of media presentation. Jenny, would you be so kind as to play the trailer for Boss Game?
Yes, I will. Let's see here. Share screen. Are you hearing the sound?
Yep.
Now,
So
Trying to get an ad out of us, huh, Hulu?
all good. That was the trailer. And Jenny has some some screenshots from the game as well, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I just wanted to just talk about for a moment this cute interaction, just to give a little bit of the example of the character that you get from these the two protagonists, this couple. So Sophie's talking about, when she was a kid and she was shy, and just this moment of, oh yeah, well, the quiet types can surprise you, but you're not shy now, so what changed? And it was her coming out, of course. And I think a lot of people can relate to that notion. And this is, just a sweet moment where her mother figure is like, yep, she accepted her, and she got to be a priestess. And life got better for her, and she was excited about something. I thought that was really sweet.
Good. I'm glad.
yeah.
I also, the thing is, the reality is I also used to spend a lot of time in the library when I was a kid. So like,
So that's the funny thing. You have both the protagonist and one of your opponents, one of the bosses, are both big fans of the library. And I think we at AADL appreciate that. So this boss, Aurelia, I think was she a ghost or a demon? I can't remember.
Yeah, she's like a ghost and a huge nerd. Actually, she's kind of great. Yeah, but she's a ghost who hangs out in the library, and reads all day.
You're basically twins. I thought that just like showing the comparison between the character and their opponent. But it's her job and her belief that she has to take down Aurelia. So they do. And we get this really cool battle. I know this is pre-release footage, but I wanted to show just a little bit of what the game is like. It's just very cool. And then yeah, they kick her out, and I'm just gonna leave it there for now and ask you about how you basically went about coming up with a story for the game.
Sure. Yeah, so I had a pretty excuse me one second. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to cough into the microphone. So yeah, so I had this concept for these characters for a long time. Where Sophie and Anna were these girlfriends who were dating, and they worked side by side, like fighting devils and just trying to make the rent every month. And so I kind of wanted to explore like their relationship. There are a lot of stories that are specifically about like people getting together, but there's not always as many stories about people actually being like in a relationship with each other, especially like a lesbian relationship or a trans relationship or something like that. I think a lot of stories in general tend to focus on like the first kiss sort of stuff, but like obviously a relationship is much more complicated than that. That's just like the first part of a relationship. So what I kind of wanted to tell like a story about like the ups and downs of being in a relationship, of like flirting with each other and like doing very mundane things together, and also and like getting into arguments with each other, all kind of set against this backdrop of this kind of fantasy like devils and magic and kind of surreal modern fantasy sort of thing. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that I certainly got the impression that there were a lot of I mean, you were pulling from you're pulling from a large array of different like inspirations, right? I mean, like there's a lot of it feels like there's a little bit of Earthbound in there. There's a little bit of Undertale, and a bunch of other, like it feels like it's very much informed by the pieces of media that like talk about, you know, how not only like mechanically how things work, but also like the narratively. There's like a lot of commentary that like and I was a little bit surprised. The game is like pretty short, but there's a lot of text, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of discussion of a lot of different very particular themes. Like there's a lot of commentary on religion, there's commentary on capitalism, and like you were talking about earlier, you were talking about how relationships like develop and change over time, and how to sort of deal with that experience. And like I'm really curious about like how you decided that you were going to pack all of that into like such a short game, and like that was like the thing that stood out to me. um
yeah, so like the reality is when I started making BossGame, I grew up playing tons and tons of like very classic traditional RPGs. So like big quests like Final Fantasy, or like you said, like Earthbound or anything like that. Like I love those kind of games growing up. And I love the worlds they created and these characters you get really attached to. And I've always wanted to make something like that. But the reality is like those are very, very big games made by huge amounts of people. And I am just one person. So I tried to find a way where I could make something that had kind of the feeling of like an adventure, and this feeling of like characters that you kind of fall in love with or characters that you hate, as well as like the drama that comes with that, and the like you said, bigger world, but like the themes that kind of come along with those stories that RPGs so like frequently kind of embrace. But I tried to find ways to kind of make it a little denser. One, because I can like I can't make a 50-hour RPG myself, but also because like I also have a job, so like I also don't play that many RPGs anymore because I don't have that much time anymore.
That's a bummer.
I know. I like the thing is I love RPGs. Like I've wanted to sit down and play like Persona 5 for ages, and but like it's a 100-hour game. Like, and it's hard to find the time for it.
I somehow managed to play the game twice through, and Persona 5 Royal is the only game I have platinumed on PlayStation, and I did it accidentally.
I actually I did finally get to see it because Emma played it. So my girlfriend played it like last month or something, and I sat there and watched it, which is fun. It was a good way to experience it. But I know so many people who love RPGs but don't have the time to play them as much anymore. So I was very excited to create a game where you could play it like on the bus or in the waiting room or something, or like, and you can kind of just do it at your own pace, like very reasonably, while still kind of having that feeling of a big world and characters that you get attached to and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I mean, a very reasonable answer. I guess I probably should have thought about the possibility that like making a game, while you were also working and doing a bunch of other stuff, like has constraints. And it is very interesting to me that like, a lot of constraints end up creating very creative, like you have to be really creative with the time and the resources that you have, right? Um, and actually about that, I was going to talk about I was going to move on to the next question, which was talking about all of the artists that you have on your game, because you like that was like one of the sort of like advertising points, I guess, but also like like these are like artists that like I know I'm pretty familiar with, and I'm like big name trans artists, and like I was really curious, like that seems amazing that you're able to get that much like that you're able to get
The
that much
level of support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to know what that process was like how did that go?
Sure. Yeah, no, it was like basically at some point, like you said, I was very much working within my own limitations, right? So like I can do stuff like pixel art, I can do stuff like the animations in the game, but I couldn't do everything. So for things like illustration or like the background art was all done by this very cool trans game dev named Chloe Taylor. Basically, whenever I was at a point where I was like, I can't do this myself, like I'm gonna find someone cool to work with, and I just happened to find, like either things would work. There was a lot of things that just kind of worked out really well. Either because they were people I knew through some friends or something like that, or they just happened to be like, hey, I'm looking to like work on a commission for a game or something like that, and I'd be like, oh, this would be great for my game. So what happened is I kind of adapted it in such a way where like I tried to find stuff for each artist to work on that was definitely like within their wheelhouse. One of the things I was like a big one, I think, is like Sophia Foster Domino has an art piece in there, and Sophia like is very, very incredibly good at drawing these like very cozy scenes between like couples or people in a house or just kind of people in like very low key mundane situations, and the houses are always filled with these like weird objects and like things lying around, and they look very lived in and realistic. And I was like, I can definitely come up with scenes in this game that this art would work, like that like Sophia's style of art would work perfectly for. There was a bit of back and forth where I was like, okay, Sophia, like if you can draw me something like this, then I can like put a scene for it in the game, and it worked out really well. And I kind of tried to approach it as like a collaborative piece in the sense that like if you ever know like listen to a musical album that has like guest singers on it, or like for one song they're going to pull in the guest singer because that's what this person's good at. In the same way, I was like, I'm going to get an illustrator who can do this kind of scene because I know this is what they're good at, and it worked out really well. It was a lot of fun too. It was a very fun way to work with other people.
That's so cool. I love hearing artists talk about like how they put things together. I know that we geez I I have a couple of questions on left to ask, but I know that we stopped the slideshow presentation halfway through, and I was wondering if would you be willing to show the rest of what the game has, or I
Yeah.
guess like more of the game.
Yeah, I got some more that I've got ready to show. Okay. You seeing that?
Yep.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So I just love that, let's see here. They go to get paid because, they got to live. A few moments later, they find themselves talking to the person who hired them to get rid of the ghost from the library. And they're a complete jerk. They didn't care about the library. They didn't care about the people or the public resource. It was all about getting golden horns. They were just greedy. And I just love he's being completely unreasonable, but he's acting like it's expected. Bring me back the golden horns. I really love how cute it was that you had Anna's speech start appearing and then quickly becomes this post has been removed for content language. It was really funny.
I had fun with that.
And I enjoy that you start the battle by kicking down the door. And I know these are not from in the game, but
yeah.
Donovan and all the other bosses have these really cool mechanics. And like just every boss fight feels like they all rely on the same controls, the same interface, but you found different ways, kind of like how Toby Fox did with Undertale. Sorry, you probably get
no, that's fine. No, I'm happy to be compared to Toby Fox. Believe me.
But it's just how did you come up with so many different different types of fights?
Sure. Yeah. So like you said, like I definitely wanted to make sure I experimented early on with like having your characters switch around a lot, but I found it actually worked better if your characters were more or less similar between each fight. Some of the fights mixed them up a little bit, but giving each fight its own unique like flair and like kind of tempo, where like some of the bosses are like very fast and tricky and some of them are just very slow and big and intimidating. And I basically try to create each fight where like it was strange because I built these fights alongside the story. So like sometimes I would think of a story character that I really liked. Like you can see in the top left corner, you have Dawn, who's this like she's like a classically like gorgeously very like kind of mean Lolita woman who dresses really nice, but she's kind of snooty. And so I try to give
for people in the audience not in the know, Lolita is a type of fashion that got big from Japan, wearing big floofy dresses often with a lot of embellishments.
Yeah, they're big ornate dresses. They're very ostentatious and like very fancy and Victorian. But so I try to come up with like I try to design the fights to fit each character that was in them. So like her moves are all about like she poses for a lot of her attacks in like ways that are actually like traditional like fashion poses. She attacks you with like parasols and like things that like like I try to have fun theming the fights around each boss as well as making it feel like it fit that character, which is a lot of fun. And like those often help me kind of inspire like the different mechanics for each boss. So like it was a good time, and mostly it just took a lot of experimenting. I was like, I would try things that would work, and if it didn't work for one boss or if it didn't really particularly feel good, I would save it for a later boss maybe, and I would find a different boss that's like, for whatever reason it happened, like an attack or a move that they did or something would fit them better. I kind of shuffled things around to make things feel like they fit the characters.
The feel, the emotions, the ideas that have been built up in the story just kind of coincides with the battle, I feel like.
Yeah, that was a big aim for sure.
I like the fact that so I full disclosure, I have not beat the game yet. But I've noticed just that even though you're not only fighting the ghosts and the devils, you're also fighting other witches and priestesses, and like you fight the mayor very early on. You fight the mayor of the city, and they all, like, I feel like they all could be classified as devils in terms of like being compared, like they're comparative to all of the other bosses in terms of like these figures that are not exactly human. Like we have Rafflesia, who is labeled as the Rat Queen, and summons a royal a loyal rat complex to mimic her attacks. And it's just, I find it interesting that their job is to fight these devils, but they're being hired by perhaps like the Mayor Donovan, who is basically a devil. It seems.
I without going too much into detail, well, I'll go into a little.
I'm guessing there's story stuff that I haven't.
Well, aside from story stuff, the reality is that like they are like it is, a lot of it is about like just the fact that like I think most people have worked for bosses that they don't get along with, or who manipulate them or kind of mistreat them, or some people maybe haven't. And if you have not had a boss that is mean to you, I am very happy for you, because it sucks. If you've ever worked at like a job where you have a boss who treats you like crap, like, it's frustrating and you can't always do that much about it. So there was a little bit of, I mean, maybe this is a little, whether you would call it escapism or just like self gratification of like, hey, like my boss is mistreating me, and in this game I can beat him up. So like, or fight against people who are cruel to you, or who are unnecessarily like, manipulating you. Exactly.
Yeah. I think a lot of the game's themes seem to revolve around power and the execution, the exploitation of, and it's very interesting that like, that like the mechanics sort of on some level foster the storytelling in that way. Which is like not like, I mean, I haven't played many mobile games, but most of the mobile games that I've played don't really try to do an interplay in terms of like those two things working together, and it was interesting. And yeah, I really like that.
Now that was definitely me trying as much as I can again to pull that kind of like the feelings of an RPG or a game where you really do get attached to like the characters and world and stuff, while also building it together with these like, pretty actiony mechanics.
Yeah, like mechanically it's very linear, but there's a lot of story beats that are happening enough that it feels like, like you have a stake in what's going on.
It feels like definitely a game of skill, similar to when you're playing a game like Undertale and you're moving around like the heart in the middle of this little battlefield square. You need to be pixel perfect often, and I think that's some nice hand-eye coordination stuff. But I believe in your settings you actually have settings for people to like slow it down or make other things more visible. Is that correct?
Yeah, so one of the things that I knew I wanted very early on was just like a wide array of what essentially fall under like what people consider like difficulty options, or like assist mode options, mostly because everyone like has different experiences playing games. So like, I grew up with lots of action games. I grew up with very fast paced, like super hard games or whatever. So I like games where you really have to be perfect at them. But some people are listen to them and might still really enjoy the game if they're just like, hey, if it was like 10 or 20% slower, or if I didn't have to worry so much about blocking all the time or whatever, and they would still have a great time with the game and still have the fun of like the combat and fights and stuff. But it was just like, not everyone has the same like hand-eye reaction speed. Not everyone's got the same physical capability. So there was very good reason to put those in there, and there wasn't a lot of reasons to not. Um, I,
Absolutely.
I was very inspired by like Celeste was the big one that has the big assist mode that like allows you to, because Celeste is a very hard game. um,
I know people who speedrun it. It's I haven't, I can't.
no, I beat like the base game, and I saw what was in like the extra stuff, and I was like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. Like I can't do that. But they also made a big point of putting those in their game for the same reason, which is that like people will probably, people are pretty good at like finding like a level that is fun for them without being boring, but without being so frustratingly hard that they just can't do it or just beyond them, and
So
so
that they get to experience too. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
they get to see the
experience
story.
the
They still get
story.
to, yeah, they get to fight the bosses and still have a good time. So
Yeah. Pretty huge. I definitely appreciate that those settings were in there. Um, I kind of want to sort of pivot the discussion a little bit towards
sure,
I'm gonna generalize a little bit. And I'm gonna ask a question that I'm sure you might have gotten before, but like, do you have any advice for like people who are like indie developers like yourself, or even people who are marginalized, trans people, non-binary people who are like really interested in making a game but don't really know where to start, or you know?
yeah. I mean, there's lots and lots of levels of advice I can get into. Um, the first probably piece of advice would be just like, uh, you know, figure out what kind of game you'd like to make. I would say realistically start with something small just so you can get some practice in. You can make something over a weekend, for example. You can make a small, like just a small little text game. Um, but depending on what kind of game, whether you want to make an RPG or an action game or just like little stories or whatever you want to do, just kind of start sitting down and doing it. They don't have to be great. I've made like 3 dozen games that were terrible, or just like small little, like they had little pieces that I liked, but they were like mostly just me goofing around. And I learned a lot making those. Um, and it helped me a lot, like get further to the point where I was like, okay, now I want to try something a little bigger. I want to try and like take it a little more seriously. Um, but I think a lot of people tend to get either like very intimidated off the start, and it seems very intimidating to start making a game, so they don't do it. Um, so I would just say like look around for things that you can do. Look at things like Twine or Game Maker, which are like a little more realistic as far as approaching. You don't have to learn years and years of programming to learn how to use them. And with Game Maker, you can make incredibly good games. Um, probably do some tutorials and figure some stuff out, and just kind of mess around and have a good time. Uh, I think the one thing I could say about game making that has kept me in it is that I tend to have fun in the day-to-day process of working on games. Um, I have fun sitting down and tinkering around and like messing around and moving enemies around and like changing numbers and stuff like that. And if you're having fun with like the moment to moment of what you're making, then you're gonna keep doing it. And if you're having fun time with that, like don't worry about like releasing it or getting popular or anything, because like probably don't get into game making if you want to be really popular and rich and famous. Like it's not a good place for that. Like don't make independent art.
You mean we can't all be Clippy B?
Yeah, we can't all be Clippy B. No, we can't all be Minecraft or Toby Fox or anything. You should make it because like if you make it because you're enjoying the day to day, and then you put it out there and people like it, that's great. But like even if you put it out there and nobody listens to it, nobody, only your friends check it out or something. If you had fun with the day to day of it, then like, it's not a waste or something. You just had a good time with it, and that's okay too. Like that's the kind of approach I try and take with the stuff I make.
I'll be honest, when I was a teenager, made a lot of little games in RPG Maker.
I love RPG Maker. I
Oh
I
yeah.
grew up making so many. Well, that was the thing, is I started in RPG Maker when I was probably 13 or 14.
Mhm.
And I tried to make like Chrono Trigger, right? Like I tried to make my own big, like 30-hour
Big
RPG
adventure.
with like tons of those things. I never put out any of those games. I did learn from them, so I still had fun with them. And if that's the kind of thing you're going to have fun with, like whatever gets you to do it is what works for you, you know? So,
There's a lot of great indie games out there that were made with it. Like,
oh yeah.
I think Off was made with it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that Japanese one that inspired Lisa? Well, there's
You mean
also
Nikki?
yeah, you mean
Yeah,
Nikki.
you mean Nikki. Yeah. There's dozens and dozens of great RPG Maker games. There's so many
Charles
good
Barkley,
ones.
Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
I love Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley's a classic. Yeah, there's tons and tons of good. And that's the thing, is that like you can make a good game with anything. There's good games made with nothing but pen and paper. There's good games you can make with a deck of cards. If you're having, you can make stuff work with anything. And even if it doesn't, no matter what you're doing, you'll end up learning something that you could take into other mediums or other, like, other bigger games or whatever you want to do. So,
Yeah. Speaking of bigger games, do you have anything down the pipeline in development? Anything that you can share for us?
I don't have anything specific I can share. I will definitely say that, like, I have two things going on right now. The first one is I'm trying to get BossGame onto PC, which is mostly just like a matter of porting and doing some extra code stuff that I haven't done, that I'm just figuring out and putting it on Steam as this whole.
It's
this
in my
ordeal
Steam
of
wish
stuff.
list.
Oh, thank you. Good. Yeah, no, I'm excited to put it out there because I know that, like, I'm happy so many people have checked it out on phones, but I know a lot of people just aren't interested in playing stuff on their phone, and that's fine. So I'm gonna do that, and I do have another game very, 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 very early on that I can't really say what it's gonna be like because I don't know. I can guarantee you it's gonna be very gay, but that's about like
Good.
that's the one
It's a
thing
good
about
place
it.
to start.
Yeah, it's gonna be about it. It's almost certainly gonna be about a lesbian couple. I have like bits of the story written, but I don't have enough like solidified to be able to really talk too much about it. It might
yeah.
actually take place in the library, so there's that. I will let you know if it does.
Wow.
I think it's just like libraries is like a setting.
I mean, there should be more games that are set in libraries for all of you listeners out there. If you wanted to make an indie game about a library, that would be cool.
Libraries are cool. Libraries have like an amazing aesthetic. Like, libraries are really cool. They're full of like just like shelves and shelves and shelves of knowledge and cool things you can learn about, and like across like more genres and areas of knowledge that you could possibly think of. So I don't know. They're a good setting. They're a good setting for things, as well as also just being generally very cool. I'm not paid to say this, by the way. I just like the library.
Yeah, hold on. Just ignore the $100 bill I'm slipping you under the table.
What's your Venmo again?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I will say that, like, even while working on BossGame, I would stop by our local, just it's a great way to get out of the house, even just go hang out at the library for a while, get some coffee and work.
Yeah.
So thank you for that too.
Oh, well, yeah. That's what they're there for. Yeah, I feel like this has been a pretty wonderful interview. Like I don't really like have much else to ask here. So like to me, I think it was really, really great to pick your brain on this. I'm really excited for whatever games you have to put out, and for everyone else, as you can tell, it's the game is on mobile platforms. It's available on the Apple Store and the Google Play, and then it's going to be on Steam at some point. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I'm happy to answer questions or whatever else. But thank you so much for having me and chatting with me.
Yeah. And I hope everyone, and I hope everyone that's tuning in is having a good Trans Day of Visibility.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, today has been a pretty great day, except for the COVID. The COVID is the one part where I'm just like, I would be better if I didn't have this.
It was such a bummer that we couldn't have you in location.
I would have loved to be there. I was very excited about it.
guess we'll have to plan for next year, or we can. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always.
Well, I was
around,
gonna
so
say,
please.
I'm gonna make sure that we get you one of the Trans Day of Visibility zines that we made.
That's right.
Please. Yeah, thank you.
Speaking
Um,
of,
Yeah.
yes, we do have the Trans Day Visibility Project spearheaded by this one, Jenny.
Me.
Just an incredible work full of some beautiful art. I definitely recommend it if you have the time. You head to any branch in our library system, and you'll be able to pick up a copy at the front desks. And
There
it's also
are
available
limited
digitally.
supply, I believe. But yes, it is also digital in our collection on aadl.org. And I'm not sure how many we have printed physically, but they are at every branch right now. There will be a sign at the desk, just say, hi, I'd like one of the Trans Day of Visibility zines. There's also, I think you can request it by emailing us at tdov@aadl.org.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I really want to see that. That's very
definitely. We'll probably also be putting it out during any related events moving forward. If we happen to do like a zine festival, or if we're doing anything for Pride Month, which we definitely will be, there we will probably be distributing them there as well. So yeah. I think that's pretty much it. So thank you everybody for coming out, and I hope that you have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, folks.